Hello and welcome to Room Escape Divas, your podcast on everything escape rooms. Tonight, we are super excited to be talking with Jeb Havens about escape room jams.
Hello, very excited.
Yeah,
This is what we do. We
hello.
do this.
We do
Woo!
this like Muppets, yes. My name is Amanda,
My name is Errol.
and Mike and Ruby are once again in babyland, so they will not be joining us tonight. They're feeding a baby, keeping her alive, which is good.
Honestly, I don't even know if we have to say anything because they're always in babyland. It's just what happens now when you have horrible children. So they just had to be.
Horrible
Yeah,
children.
all children are horrible. I have lots
She's
of them.
super
I'll
cute
just-
though.
yeah,
She's
she
got
is
the
cute. Still,
chubbiest cheeks.
still
Yeah.
horrible. But actually, we do see them more because they're just stuck at home, and I think Mike is looking for any way to escape. So he joins us on Friday nights for our enthusiast meetup. So if you want to
That's
see Mike
true.
and Ruby and the baby, you can
And
join
the baby.
us.
The baby
Yeah.
often makes an appearance, often staring at the screen kind of creepily. So yeah.
Yes. Hello, Jeb Havens. My name is Errol.
Hello.
I don't
Hi,
think
Errol.
we've met officially, but we
No,
hear
we haven't.
all
We haven't.
sorts of things about you. Well, Manpans told me all sorts of things about you. Private
Well,
things.
what?
Well, because she did the game jam with you.
Yes,
So that's how
so-
I've heard all sorts of things.
Yes. So I met
Jeb
Jeb at the.
Havens. Is it
I met
Jeb
Jeb
Havens?
Havens. So
Jeb
that's how we're
Havens.
gonna do
Jeb
it from
Havens.
now on. From here on out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I met Jeb Havens at the first escape room jam that
Ever?
not ever, but the first the digital one that was part of Recon, and it was such a fun and interesting experience. And so before we get into that, Jeb, how about you introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be doing escape room design and jams.
Yeah, of course, happy to. So I'll give the short version of very long version, and we can always talk about more detail later. But basically, I've been a professional game designer since 2003, so very many years, and mostly started out in the video games industry and worked in video games and tech, and have done a lot of board game design as well on the side. So I worked for companies like Google and Electronic Arts, and have designed games for and with Disney and Marvel and SimCity, and did some interesting projects with Samantha Bee and DoorDash, a whole variety of types of brands and stuff like that. So I love kind of game design as in the biggest sense of it. So it could be anything from board games to apps to puzzles to escape rooms, obviously. But yeah, also have a couple published board games out there that have won some lovely awards, and I have my most recent crowdfunded party game that is now out there called You Don't Know My Life, which is all about getting to know your friends in a bit of a sassy way. And
Nice.
yeah, so I have lots of projects going on, and working on a new mobile app with a great startup right now. So a lot of things along the way. So that's sort of my overall sort of take on how I approach game design. It's kind of from a lot of angles, but really the origins for the Escape Jam, and specifically, so for the last 10 years or so, I've always loved running game design workshops through either just independently, through consulting with companies, or through the game design, the game developers workshop, the game developers conference in San Francisco. We do a game design workshop there, and have helped run that workshop. So I always love the like fast-paced, iterative sort of environment where you just toss people in, and it's really like play testing driven. So you'd imagine, a bunch of people in a big conference room, throw them into tables and give them like scraps of paper and cards and dice and pens, and have them like whip up some kind of board game, and then people play test it and they iterate and do something new. So that sort of form has always been really exciting to me, and I think especially for things where you're trying to innovate, doing stuff really in a playtesting driven, iterative way is really exciting. So yeah, a couple of years ago, when escape rooms started becoming the hot new thing, I fell in love with them, and I've always been a big fan of puzzles and the old style, point and click adventure and digital escape rooms and stuff like that. So I, really wanted to get into that space, and started to meet some great people in the community in LA, and just saw like an interesting opportunity to bring that kind of iterative workshop mentality to escape rooms. So just tried it out. It was, I think, 3 years ago or so was the first one, and it was literally just a rented Airbnb house that I rented for like half a day, and we cleaned it up nicely afterwards, and a
I
couple
can
dozen
imagine
people.
like how much glitter was on the floor.
It took a while to explain to the guy what we were even doing. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like a workshop. You're gonna move my furniture to another room and then put it back. But yeah, but that's how it came to be. So it's really, I love that kind of style of workshop, and I thought it would be good for escape rooms, especially because it's an area where I think there's still, especially a couple of years ago, but even still, so much room for exploration and experimentation and innovation. And I think the best way to do that is just toss people together and try some crazy stuff.
Very cool. So the concept of a game jam in general, for those who may have never have heard of one. I had heard of them before. In fact, I was in one, and it was a very different experience because it was 2 weeks long, and
Two
you
week
pretty
long game jam.
a 2 week long game jam. It was for video games and stuff, but I'd like made a little interactive thing with twine basically, but it was very
Just with
independent.
string. It's like cat's cradle.
Oh yeah, twine the computer program. Thank you,
Okay,
Daryl,
good.
for doing for
I was
making
picturing
me
like the rest of
clarify
your
that.
team is programming a video game. You're off with like your twine and cutting it. Look what I made.
Outside knowledge. Here we go. So, uh, so, but it was a much different one, much different feel. So, would you mind explaining like even the concept of a game
Mhm.
jam in general?
Yeah. So the reason why I use the word jam is because game jams in the video games world is pretty common and has been around for a long time. And it's usually like an event. Sometimes it's all in the same space. Sometimes it's just people virtually doing like the global game jam. And everybody, for example, takes a 48-hour period, or apparently for you a couple of weeks, and everyone comes in. And over a weekend, let's say, folks that are designers, artists, programmers, etc., come together, form small teams, and they just create a game from scratch, from start to finish. And so a lot of it is just about, for a lot of people that love doing it, it's just kind of exercising those muscles of like what it means to create something from scratch and have a totally blank slate. Often jams will have a theme where you'll sort of be, trying to explore a certain type of mechanic or a certain, certain theme or something in the game. But yeah, so that's again kind of that mentality. And I think for me, having worked in the video games industry a long time, a lot of people like it because sometimes you might be working on a game that's going to be like a year or 2 years long of this process, and so sometimes it's just refreshing to kind of step away from that and have something that's like, great, we build it, we play it, we throw it away like 2 days later, and it's just a great fun experience. And it's fun to do it with other people. I think that's a big part of it too, is the social experience of being able to interact with other folks and be creative with other people.
And it is true. Jams seem to be super popular. You see jams with everything, right? So everywhere, look, there's another jam happening. That's cool.
Right. Well, it's pretty easy to throw it together. As much as I like to think there's a lot of secret sauce in the escape jam, and I do think like I've learned something over the years. I always end it by saying like, you guys can go do this. You can just gather some friends and come up with some constraints and gather over a weekend or whatever, and just try and build something. I think that's just such a fun process, and I think it's all for the better.
Yeah, nice. And so for the escape room jam, what were some of the not challenges, I guess, but the differences you faced from like a traditional video
Mhm.
game escape jam or board game escape jam? Sorry,
Yeah.
board game jam, not board game escape jam.
No,
Ugh,
the
Or you
words
crazy.
could
sort
do
of
that
overlap.
too.
Hey, escape from the board game. Why not?
There we go.
Yeah, we definitely, as I said, I learned a lot. Like doing the workshop itself is this iterative process where like the first one, just testing it out and seeing what happens. And yeah, I think there's initially a lot of logistics of who goes where and what team is playtesting what team, and what's the right sort of timing and pacing of it, because you want this balance between on the one hand, I want everyone to feel like you have enough time to dig into something, but not to get like complacent on any idea that Like,
Yeah.
kind of come in and be like, no, there's like 10 minutes left, like make some decision, because oftentimes, there's sort of this like paralysis when you're designing of just like the team is sitting there being like, well, we could do this, or maybe this will be better, or maybe that'll be better. And really, it's like the best way to know that answer is to try it. Like one thing I always say is like, if you're like hemming and hawing between like option A or option B, like playtest either one and you'll realize option C was the right answer the whole time. So it's all about just like pushing people in that right pace to get them to try stuff and learn from mistakes. Like, one of the key things we say in the design workshop for the game developers conference is fail fast and follow the fun. So just get in there, get your failures out of the way. It's never going to be right the first time, and follow the fun. So I think just figuring out the right structure that lets people do that and gives them the constraints, and gives them the excuse to kind of get into that sort of mode and not feel like everything has to be perfect and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was definitely something I had to adjust to during the jam.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, like I said, I had done one before, and there was a kind of frenetic pace about it, even if it was 2 weeks. And the frenetic pace came from like people in these Discord chats just being like, I need voice actors, or I need someone to write like 2 bits of narrative for me, I need a coder, and like everyone just kind of like signing up for projects left, right, and center. With this one, I think it was you had introduced like a puzzle idea to us. You showed us how you iterated it, and then you had us go off and do and think of a theme. And I remember you had set out a timeline. Like it wasn't like you hadn't set out a timeline, but when the moderator came around and suddenly was like, "Okay, so 5 minutes until your first puzzle iteration test," and we were like still talking about the theme, and we were like, "Ah!" it
Yep.
was it was like, yeah, it was definitely something to adjust to.
Yeah, and it's interesting, even like, again, because the one that you participated in last month with Recon, that was the first attempt at moving this escape jam to a virtual format, and
Yeah,
running it over Discord, and that had its own learnings and challenges of like, how do you communicate all that stuff to people? Like when you're all in the same general space, you can kind of just like shout and be like, 10 minutes everybody,
right.
and kind of just get a sense of the room. So yeah, I mean, I if you haven't guessed, like I love just that iterative process, even in the workshop format, to sort of see what we do next. But I think another interesting thing for the physical escape jam was dealing with figuring out the right space for it, because that's such a hard thing, because you want,
Right.
the ideal space that you want, it has like individual rooms or spaces that people can sort of transform. So in the physical version, a team is given like a room or a pair of connected rooms or something, and a bunch of craft DIY 99-cent store materials, and is transforming that space into an escape room that other people can play. And
Mhm.
figuring out the right sort of space for that is really hard. So as I said, we rented a house through Airbnb, which it worked, but it was like a little bit cramped and kind of bizarre. And then it was
Right.
just a really happy coincidence that so a good friend of mine, who I'm sure you know, Tommy Hunton, who runs Stash House Escape Room, and
Mhm.
he has the space that they run. Stash House has this like weird space behind it that has like a bunch of creepy empty rooms. It's a really bizarre space that has a lot of these little nooks and crannies and small rooms off of the center area. So
Right.
that's where we ran actually a few of the escape jams in that space. But then that space wasn't available anymore after a little while, and so we worked with Hatch Escapes, and they had like an area that happened to be under construction for their like next room at the time, and so it's
Mm.
kind of like half built out and just this weird warehouse looking space. And so
Come to my
fortunately,
creepy warehouse to
yeah,
decide a
very
game.
very trusting. I don't know, people seem to be very trusting of me, and it's like, sure, come on in, and bring in a couple, bring in 40 people and have them transform the space. And we always do a great job of cleaning up afterwards. But yeah, but that's sort of
When
a
I
tricky part of it.
yeah, when I was in LA, I did get a chance to tour those two places because they are weird spaces and it's
Yes.
pretty wild, actually.
Hmm.
So it's sad that Tommy Hunton doesn't have that area anymore,
I
or
know, I
is it
know.
all
What?
just
He
oh?
well, we couldn't use it for that anymore. There's a chance it might be possible in the future again. But yeah, there's the whole other story that you can maybe have him on the show and
Well,
ask him
well,
all about the
it's
saga. But
funny. I think we've been talking about Tommy a lot. Now, the thing is we have pre-recorded we have pre-recorded podcasts, and so people here haven't heard us talk, but then they're gonna hear Tommy's name over and over again. So they're up. It's like
I mean,
we're
he's
just
the hub of
advertising for
everything.
him.
He's the Yeah, it was actually great because I had met him sort of like through the fact that I was kind of floating this idea of doing this sort of escape jam, and then I think then I got connected with him because he had sort of been thinking of something along the same lines and running an event and that sort of thing. So yeah, so he's been a great he's kind of the other half of Escape Jam for sure, and has been part of all the events in LA.
Excellent. Yeah. No, and he was actually my moderator for
There you
Escape
go.
Jam #1. So
Yep.
he was our guide, and yeah, that was great. So when you mentioned, like, it's kind of a cramped space and stuff, or finding the right space for it, with both the physical and the digital versions of this, do you feel like there's a I've lost my words now. I'm like, unique? No, it's not the word I'm looking for. But ideal. Do you feel like there's an ideal size for the group, or like groups as they were?
hmm
Or is there like a limit where it's suddenly like there are just too many people in here to keep track of what's going on?
Yeah. I think most of the time when I've run the event, I try and keep it like, especially if it's mostly just me kind of moderating, I try and keep it to like 4 teams that I'm sort of managing.
Mm.
And that does work pretty well, of like having 4 different groups and 4 rooms, and team A play test team B, and then vice versa. But the team sizes in the physical jam went up to, I think, 7 or 8 people on a team, because there you can kind of more easily like divide the work up, and some people are building this crazy structure out of cardboard, and these people are like stretching tape along the floor, and these people are like dressing up in costumes or something like that. So
Oh, that's fun.
yeah, but I think and what we've tried to do with the virtual escape jam, bringing in obviously David and Lisa from Room Escape Artists, and with Tommy's help, kind of dividing that up so we can cover more teams. So I think definitely the goal would be that we can handle some larger groups, and I think the virtual format obviously has some pros and cons, and one of the pros is that like we can possibly reach people outside of LA. It doesn't have to be in a specific
That's
city.
true. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
One of the other interesting things I found with the digital one was I don't think I ever thought of, say, making a game with Google Slides, uh, but it worked wonderfully. And
Yeah.
It's all
yeah.
the rage with teachers. You
Oh,
wouldn't,
is it?
Oh yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's really, yeah. I mean, well, because this thing, like I go immediately to whatever's the scrappiest, like whatever's the quickest iteration tool. So like I said, even with the physical version, it's like I will, before I go to the event, I will go to the dollar store and just get all the random crafting materials, and just stuff where like the whole point is like you're not gonna feel bad if it gets scrapped, if you're just like put together something to test it out in
Yeah.
Google Slides, and you've put some pictures here and there. It's not like you've invested days and days of your life in it. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you're just like, oh, scrap that and let's go with this thing instead. But yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's an easy collaborative tool, and but it's interesting. Like different teams ended up using, because we always like start there, and I'll say that's a good tool to start with. But other teams were using like lucid charting, and other teams were doing more sort of like acting based things where it
Yeah, there
wasn't
was like a couple
projecting
of remote
slides.
avatar type things going on, and
Yeah. And
yeah.
that's something that I think we're really planning on pushing for the next virtual escape jam, is these other methods, even beyond just using Google Slides to present some images or environments or things, but also using actors, using these kind of avatar based things where maybe you even have like a physical object in the room that you're holding up and showing to the team, or you're interacting with
Yes.
somebody, or maybe I'm the moderator and I'm projecting a website and you just tell me what to do and I got to type stuff in. So there's a lot of, it's interesting, like even just doing that experience one time, I feel like already me and other people who are there like already have a broader sense of what you could possibly do with escape experiences done virtually.
I have an interesting question. Well, I think it's interesting.
My question's the most
The most
interesting.
interesting of all
Actually, it might be
questions.
actually a very boring question, but I know
We'll
that
let you know.
yeah, like game jams in general, as you've said, are very popular, like video game jams and board game jams. So what is the audience for an escape room jam? Because, a lot of people are wanting to build board games or video games, and I think a lot of people are starting to want to build escape rooms. But do you get a lot of corporate people? Do you get a lot of would-be escape room designers, or just people who think, oh, this looks fun, let's try it?
A lot of Muppets.
A lot of Muppets.
This is great. No, I love the fact that it's always been a big mix of people, but I think it is primarily for there is a segment of people who we get who are either working as escape room designers or running escape room or want to open their own escape room, and they're just interested in sort of trying their hand at it. But I do think a lot of it is just for the enthusiast who loves doing escape rooms, has a lot of the people, they've done dozens or hundreds of escape rooms, and they've seen a lot of things, and so in their head as they're going, they're like, all right, I could probably do this, but also they're not the people that are going to go into the business, because there's a big hurdle for putting up $50,000 into constructing a professional escape room, and bringing and going down that entire path as a career choice. But people who just want to try it out and have fun. So we do have a bunch of folks that have been to a whole bunch of them. They'll just kind of come back, and it's just like a fun, refreshing thing that they get to do every now and then to just sort of stretch their brain. But I like that it's a good mix, and even some people that have maybe done even just like one escape room or sometimes no escape rooms, and they're just kind of interested in being creative. And I think what's nice with having a team is that people can take on different roles, and some people can dive more into really developing the puzzles, and others can be thinking of the narrative and the theme, and other people can working on beautiful artwork and things like that, or playing with twine in the corner.
Playing with
doing
twine
whatever
in the
they want to
corner.
do.
I got this, guys. I got this.
There's amazing things that people have built with twine. That's why I immediately thought that, because in the physical escape jam, twine is key. You can do so many cool things where you gotta pull a rope through a thing, or hang off a balcony and two people are holding either end, and you've got a coat hanger on the end of it trying to pick up something. So don't discount twine.
I will not. I do not discount twine. No, it's funny. There was somebody in our group who was very much like Errol, in that it broke his heart to put out an ugly image into our test, when we were down to the minute mark, and he was like, no, wait, this isn't the right color, and there's white all around it, because I basically just cut and pasted a giant image of a diamond onto our slide, and then it's too late, we gotta go. But that was what he spent a lot of his time doing, was perfecting the images and making it. Was great, turned out great.
Yeah,
but
there's a role for everybody, for sure.
So now do you find, well, we did
even you, Errol, there's a role for you.
Yeah, image guy, that's who you're known as, just
Yep.
Image guy. Forget puzzles. No, I was gonna ask if I was gonna ask if it was, now the last virtual one that we did, there wasn't so much a theme to it. We all discussed our themes, but somehow through some magical think group kind of thing, half of us decided on space. I don't know what's going on right now, that we all just want to launch into space. But do you find that when you're trying to think of a theme for the escape jam, is it easier to think of a theme and have people have those restrictions in place, or is it easier do you find to just let them go for anything they want?
Yeah, and then that's interesting. That was one thing I think we did learn from that iteration of the virtual escape jam, was that we should probably give a little bit more direction on the theme, because what happens, I realized what happens in the physical version is, I always ask, in addition to me stopping by the dollar store and bringing a whole bunch of random crap, I also ask all the participants to each bring at least 3 random items from home to sort of put into this big pile of random stuff. and then people use that, in building their rooms. So oftentimes people will be inspired by specific objects or things that they see, and also by the physical space. Like that's another big thing when
Right.
you're doing a physical space and you're assigned this room that kind of has this archway into another space. And so it immediately gets your kind of gears turning of like, okay, well maybe that space is the bank vault, and this is the door here, and we're breaking and entering or whatever. So I think what we're planning on doing for the next jam, because it is going to be let's see,
Yes.
depending on when you're listening to it, this Sunday, October 18th, and the lead up to Halloween. So we are doing like a spooky theme, which people can kind of take as they want, whether kind of on the funnier side or mysterious or more scary or dark, but giving them a little bit more direction there. And we are going to be sort of offering a random assortment of interesting images or items or things that we're
Oh,
gonna
cool.
have people incorporate into their room, so give a little bit more direction there. But at the end of the day, I also say that like whatever constraints or rules that we put, I always encourage teams that if they find some cool fun thing, to just follow that. Like ditch the rules if you've actually got something awesome, and go with it. But I think having a lot more of that direction up front really helps teams get inspired and just start building and start moving.
How
Cool.
large are the teams? Did you say that already? Teams
They
of.
tend to be anywhere from like 4. We've done it where it's as big as like 8 or so. So that tends to be a good size, I think, where people can, it's enough people, so you've got, in the over the course of a couple hours, even you can get a lot done and a lot built. Kind of divide the labor a little bit, but not too big, so it gets a little hard to manage all those cooks in the kitchen.
Nice. I did buy my ticket today for the Escape Jam on Sunday,
Woo!
so
All right,
I will be
nice.
there again. I'm ready this time. I'm not ready, but I'll be like it's a challenge now. I'm like, can I how long before I panic? It was funny to know that I wasn't alone in
Oh
that
no,
like,
not at all.
you know,
Yeah.
seasoned puzzle designers too who are just like, wait a second, 2 minutes
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's great. Great. I'm excited to see you there. And yeah, I definitely encourage anyone who does hear this before Sunday to sign up. And as I said, I think we were able to get the early bird uh, discount or whatever, like extended or something like that. So, but if
great.
there's any issues, like people can email me and I'll make sure they get in jebhavensgames@gmail, and we'll get you into it. There's also this time we're going to try something new. We're planning to do a showcase of the finished games the following Saturday. So next
Nice.
Saturday,
Ooh.
it'll be a chance for folks to see and kind of run their games
Oh
again for folks,
no.
and invite if you'd like to, and invite friends and family, or just we'll have I know David and Lisa were talking about in having some people from their community with room escape artists who might just want to pop in and observe some games. So yeah, so I think this is definitely we're iterating on it, but I think there's a really cool idea here where people can come together, spend a day, iterating on some really interesting experimental ideas, and help flesh out this, idea of what a escape room in a virtual world could be, and then have this showcase so that folks can come in and experience it, and if they like it, they can come to the next one and design
Yeah.
one of their own.
That's really exciting. Because I know that one of the sentiments at the end of that escape jam was like, "That was fun. I wish I could show somebody my game or
Yeah.
something." And some of us did, right? Some of us
I
were
know
like,
it was such an
"We're
awesome thing that happened organically at the end,
yeah,
where we're all in Discord, and like we'd already hit the time limit where it was like midnight or 2 a.m. in Europe, and so those people have been up way too late, and we were supposed to wrap it up, but it was like
well, then
a bunch
because
of
some
people
people were
wanted
saying like the
to hang out.
titles of their games, and
Yeah,
so then we were like, wait, there was someone with a duck. I think we were like,
Ducks versus Dinosaurs was a
yes,
great
ducks
one.
versus
Yeah,
dinosaurs, and
you
you're
have
like,
to
well,
play
what's
that.
that?
Yeah, so people just started posting in the chat like, hey, we're gonna run our game, whoever wants to join in this room, and then we'll run this game. And I always love to see that, like, people are genuinely and rightly so excited about the stuff that they've been able to create, even in a
Yeah,
few short hours. You really can have something that's cool, and you want to show it off. So that's the idea behind having the showcase event, to make sure that that has its own space, and that people, again, friends and family or other enthusiasts can just come and experience that.
So it's good that it's a safe space because I know
Yes.
some jams are judged.
Right.
Manpans loves being judged.
Hey,
You know.
I appreciate the judgment. Maybe I just have to prepare myself for the judgment. That's
Mhm.
all. Judgment's important. Judgment is important if you're a creative.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
No, I
But
meant
so,
it's
like
hard
first
to.
place,
Yeah.
second place. So some jams are actually
oh,
ranked.
Yeah.
ranked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We've thought about that as well, of having, the like celebrity judges come in and play the showcase and see what they think. But at the end of the day, because, really we want people to do things that are totally experimental and have a good chance of failing. Like if you don't have a good chance of your thing totally failing, then you're probably not pushing yourself far enough. So we want to, encourage people to do things that might not work at all versus
Yeah.
really being concerned about, okay, this has to be, we have to like play it safe and do something that the judges are going to like. But yeah, but I think it'd be great to have, even just have like some, celebrity judges. I don't know who the exactly the escape world celebrities would be, but I'm sure I could find some to come on in and just play through the games and give their feedback. And because everything's each one is always so different, like from the,
Yes.
even just from this past experience, I'm sure you saw as well,
Well, I
Amanda,
know,
where like,
yeah, I know I said that like half the games were space, but within that genre, there was a wide variety of tones and plots and puzzles that like it varied very differently.
yeah.
So, yeah, like it's fun to see what people come up with.
Hmm.
And you're right about like playtest being it being playtesting focused, and I know the importance of playtesting, but it was just reiterated here when we would very quickly come up with a puzzle idea, think that's great, and then like getting to go to another group with that puzzle and then they immediately get stuck. And
Hmm.
you know um that being said, I need to actually ask you. So we've said this word a lot, and I remember this being a word that made me a little bit like what during the first jam, and it's such an important word, iteration.
Oh
Um,
yeah, iteration. I was like, what
yeah,
word did I
I
say?
know.
Oh
I was
no.
really excited about this word. Oh, it's a secret new
It's a
word.
good
It's just
it's a
word.
like
secret word.
Sesame Street. We're gonna learn something.
Twine. Yeah.
Yes. Iterative. Yeah. No, it is. It's one of my favorite words, and I probably use it all the time. But yeah, I think at its core, the idea of iteration, like one iteration is like one cycle. So you go through what's called the iterative loop with a design. It's just that feedback loop of, you design something and then you see it play tested or you see it play out, and then you learn and you feed that back in and you do another, small change based on what you saw. And it's sort of as opposed to trying to plan, this often happens. It's a big, it's a buzzword used all the time in the video games industry as you're trying to design something that, if you set out to design a full fleshed out game, the best awesome game, and you map it out on paper in your design documents and everything, and then the idea that like, okay, I've done it, I've designed the perfect game, and then you start building it, and inevitably very quickly it will all fall to pieces because you'll be surprised by what happens or what players do or all these interacting systems. And so the better approach, that a lot of people have adopted is the idea of iterative development, where you make a thin slice or a initial prototype or a MVP, minimum viable product version, to just test your hypothesis. Be like, is this even fun at all? Like, does this even make any sense? Because
Right.
that's like some of those valuable playtesting feedback, and that's why we push for people to playtest, even if you have like 20 seconds worth of material. Grab someone from the other team to playtest and have them look at it, and like step one, if they don't even get it, then you're like, oh, this is totally on the wrong track. And so
Hmm.
some of that is incredibly valuable, because especially for, I think especially for immersive entertainment. So game design definitely, but even more so for immersive, because part of the experience of an immersive experience like an escape room is that as the player, you are intentionally given very little explicit direction. It is not like,
Right.
here is the crossword puzzle, go solve it. It is like, you're in a room, what the heck do you do now? And the puzzle could be anywhere and could be anything, and that's part of the excitement. So I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of what I think the process of like trying small pieces and iterating and seeing how people respond really comes into play there, because I think that's some of the most important lessons that I hope that I get across through that, or people pick up from doing it, is that like it's not just about like making an escape room is not just about making like the coolest really difficult puzzle and then just like plopping it in front of people. it's really like this crafting this whole experience, the whole arc of the player experience from the beginning, and having, such as having like some early easy wins that the players can, build trust with the designer and build trust with the room, and then that'll set them up with the confidence to tackle more challenging things later. And how they get in and out of each puzzle, I think, is just as important as the puzzles themselves. So there's a lot of stuff that you can't really know until you see it from someone else's eyes, because you're making so many assumptions, especially as a puzzle designer. You're like, oh, this puzzle makes total sense to me, and then you show it to someone else and they don't even know where to start. They don't even know where the puzzle is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. That's why I try and do, like, always structure where I do some initial puzzle exercise as fast as possible right at the start of the day, just kind of hit people over the head with that hammer. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, you think you can design an immersive puzzle, and then you try it and you put it in front of a bunch of other people who just stare at it and are like, I have no idea what I'm even looking at. And you
Yeah.
immediately, like, kind of just like checks you a little bit.
Do
You're like,
I
okay,
break it
got it.
open? Is that what I do?
Yeah, you get to really, you learn really quickly all of the like 50 things you didn't realize someone might interpret this as or try and do with it immediately.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think rule number one of puzzle design is it's too hard. You made it too hard.
Yeah. It's pretty much always too difficult. Yeah. Yeah. Keep it simple.
So you run a bunch of game jams. Have you been a participant in them at all, or
Uh,
many
um,
times?
that's interesting. I've done some video game jams and board game jams and stuff like that. Yeah, I tend to, maybe I'm a little bit of a control freak now that I think about this, but I tend to be the one running the big experience than doing it. But I take a lot of the iterative development process. Like, that is how I do my own design. Like, if I'm designing a board game, or if I'm designing a new, like the new app that I'm working on has a bunch of these mini games in it. So I do a lot of paper prototyping for initial ideas, and
Right.
just do really scrappy development, and then get it in front of somebody. Leave even, okay, I've got some cards and paper, put it in front of someone. Is this fun at all, or should I just like scrap this and go a different direction? So I
Yeah.
think that's the mentality that I approach a lot of my own, career, and a lot of the game design consulting that I do. But yeah, I love it. So I'm sure I would love to be a participant. But I think
You just start moderating
I would
groups like
probably just
randomly.
start moderating. Yeah. Yeah, it's just in my bones now, I think.
I do like that's the question you ask when you test something. That's what you've said repeatedly now is this fun, or is this
Hmm.
even fun? And that's
Yep.
that's your first question. Like, do they
Right.
is this fun, and do they know what they're doing? Or is it fun for the wrong reasons?
Right. Yeah,
But
actually, because one of the most common traps that, I mean, from the beginning of my career as a game designer, immediately fell into it and constantly fall into it and see others, is like, you design something that you realize that the experience you've made is more fun for the designer than for the player. Like, something that's really fun for you to watch someone do, you're like, oh, because I understand what's happening, but the player's totally lost, is like, we tend to sort of design for ourselves because we're like, oh, this would be really fun if they had to do this and this and this. But then you put it in front of a player and it's not really that fun for them. So getting you out of your own head as much as possible, I think, is step one. And the big that, you can't fake that when you've got an actual playtester sitting there who is like totally lost. You can't fool yourself into
yeah.
thinking it's still working.
Or angry.
Or angry. Angry, yes. Hopefully we don't get a lot of angry people, but you never know. Never know.
You never know.
You never know.
And what is your favorite part of the escape jam process, or even just the game jam? Like, when you're sitting there
Mhm.
moderating and watching the teams, what's your favorite moment of the day?
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely like in the I think it happens in the playtests for sure. Like, watching that sort of spark happen when, going for seeing a team that has like tried something and it didn't quite work, and they just changed like a little thing, or they added like a little hint here, or whatever, and just seeing that spark happen when like some other team comes to play test it, and it works brilliantly, and everyone's, just really caught up in it. So you can definitely hear and feel those moments. People get really excited about it, because it does feel like something magical is just sort of like appearing out of nothing, or being created out of nothing. But I
Yep.
think that's and it's the same with the board game design workshops that I've run. It's sort of that moment when someone it kind of clicks with a person. They're initially maybe lost or they're a little intimidated. They're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this design thing. And then they just like hit upon something, and the first time they see it really work with a player, then they're in, and they're like, okay, now I'm in it. That was really fun. Let's do something even cooler, and let's add this and change that. So I always
Yeah.
love seeing people kind of gain that sort of confidence and realize, I think everybody should be a game designer personally, but I think it's one of the most like human things is to sort of design these fun experiences that other people can take part in. And so I think the more kind of spreading that, I think is always my favorite part.
I play mind games with my children.
You
Great.
do.
There you go.
But
You're one step there already, Errol.
they're kind of desensitized to them
Yeah.
now. So
It's horrible.
yeah, you keep having to think of new ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was thinking about it and I realized that one way to consider this is it almost felt like a public booking game to me at first. You're suddenly thrown into a room with a bunch of strangers who you don't necessarily know, and you have to get to know them very quickly in order to achieve your
Mhm.
goal, which is to make this game. And so it was good to get to know people throughout the day because you don't even know what their talents are, what your talents are even necessarily, and figuring that out and then kind of trying to naturally fall into roles was just as much of a, I'm not going to say challenge, I'm going to say yeah, I'll say challenge. In the best way possible,
Mhm.
right? It's a good challenge as actually creating the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens. Like, I know most of like escape rooms, a lot of them lean towards like private parties now, but I've just played some escape rooms where you're thrown in with a bunch of strangers or people you don't know, and it's a similar thing. Like, you very quickly realize like who were the sort of natural leaders and who's searching around and who's doing this, and who's gonna be solving this sort of puzzle, or who's doing the
Yeah.
physical stuff. So yeah, I enjoy that part of it as well. I think that's important, and that's like I do want to create a community around this, because I think at the end of the day, it is something that ultimately I think the escape room sort of art form and community itself, like I think it benefits from this sense of exploration and continuing sort of pushing the bounds and pushing what it means, what an escape room even is. And we've seen a lot of great advancement on that in rooms that people are building and stuff like that. But I think having an explicit space for people to come in and push those boundaries and kind of move the art form forward and move the medium forward in that way,
Hmm.
is definitely really exciting. And especially obviously now with people in lockdown mode and not able to be
Yeah.
in physical spaces together, it's especially important to sort of if we're gonna take any sort of opportunity from this, it's that like what can we explore now? We can't do this thing right now, but what can we still do that keeps the essence of what is so exciting and fun about escape rooms,
Hmm.
but move it into some other areas. And ultimately, my hope would be that we learn a lot about what you can do through digital and the internet and meeting rooms and all that kind of stuff. And then we kind of incorporate the best of that into the best of like physical spaces, and really find sort of some new paths forward, when we can all be in the same room together again.
Nice. And for anybody who wants to come to this escape jam and to any future escape jams for
Hmm.
that matter, let's say they've never designed an escape room before, they've always been interested, they're coming at this for the first time. What advice would you give them for their very first escape jam?
I would say, yeah, it's for any experience level or skill level. Definitely, it's a lot of people say like, oh, it's for all people or whatever, but I think it really is.
Yeah.
Where you just have to be a person who can like come up, enjoys maybe coming up with some stuff. So I think in terms of advice, I think like don't be intimidated, and just come into it with an open mind, because I think part of the beauty of part of why I love, again, that iterative development style and playtesting driven design is that there's not a ton of pressure on you to like write out a perfect plan from the beginning. like you just have to take one interesting step. You just have to try something,
Yeah.
and then see if it works. So there's very little pressure. It's not like you're sort of coming in. It's like, here's a blank piece of paper, craft us an entire escape room. It's more like, come on in. Here's here's some ideas, and some try something. Come up with something you think might be interesting for like two people who are about to come in and play test your thing, and then see what they do, see what they like, hear what they say, and they go from there. So I think, yeah, don't be intimidated by that. How daunting it seems, because again, I think everybody has that kind of creative designer in them, and can know what things kind of sound interesting. And because you're working on a team, again, you can take on different roles. If you really like thinking of narrative, or if you're more like, you want to be the role of like act as a character in the thing, and interact with the players directly, and come up with your backstory for your character.
Yeah.
Or if you're someone who just likes to create really beautiful diagrams and things like that, then go for it.
If you like spreadsheets.
If you love spreadsheets, exactly.
Spreadsheets, the escape room.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
When I was really bored at work one day at my day job, I actually did try to think of a bookkeeping escape room, and I was like, I've hit rock bottom for the day, I think. Yeah.
Imagine
Time
the
to go
cool
home.
formulas. I use this VLOOKUP.
It's like, where's the receipts? Anyway, yeah, I was thinking,
It
they
could work,
just
it could
created
work.
a new formula for that, XLOOKUP. Anyway.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
I love
I
VLOOKUP.
heard-
VLOOKUP's my favorite best friend.
Yeah, me too.
XLOOKUP.
It's
Ah.
XLOOKUP. It's a combination of VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. It's amazing.
Oh my god! Like
Mind
it's
blown.
taking everything in me to not just go with it right now. No, I'm a total Excel spreadsheet nerd, like from day one. Because most of the video games that I've worked on is mostly in like the simulation game genre. So simulating everything from like the economy of a city, and simulating this theme park, and simulating like the people interacting at this party. And at the end of the day, it is all spreadsheets all the way down. You're just like simulating every combination and mathematical formulas. And
I
We
taught
did
an
that for
Excel.
hunts.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
we use it for puzzle hunts. Yeah.
We use it for puzzle hunts because it's also good for seeing patterns. For example,
Yes.
if you spit out all these words and then you have them all automatically spit out into each letter into each column, then you'll suddenly see, oh wait, all of these are length 8. They're all the same length, right? Which you might not see with a font that is not monospace, and different things like that. Oh, we do. And then we just automatically pull out the letters for us so that we don't have to calculate it by hand. Because I think I spend more time sometimes coming up with formulas than solving the puzzle.
Right. If you get the right spreadsheet, it basically solves itself.
Then it's
Yeah,
like,
I could go down a whole puzzle hunt tonight, but maybe that's a little too in the weeds for our listening audience.
That's true. It's just like,
but I will
Laurel
say,
does it all the time.
So like the MIT mystery hunt, and the doing the puzzle boat right now. Are you guys doing the puzzle boat?
Puzzle boat? I'm not. I know a lot of people are doing the puzzle boat right now.
Yeah.
So
I love all that stuff. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway.
Bring it back. Where were we?
That's okay. We made it with only one tangent tonight. That's impressive.
So far.
So far. No, we're just about wrapping up here, I think. I was going to ask something else, and then it just left my head.
Because we talked about spreadsheets.
If only you had all your notes in a spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't a question, it was a comment. But yes, once I realized in that escape jam that like perfection wasn't needed, in fact, it wasn't even encouraged, then that, it somehow unlocked a whole lot of things. And the fact that we could just throw a bunch of stuff together and there'd be no judgment, it's great.
Yeah, and I think because I've led like a bunch of teams of people building a game or building in board games or experiences, and I think that's very refreshing for people, where it's like you're not trying to build the perfect thing, you're trying to just build the next step along the way. Like there's never any final iteration, there's only the next iteration. And so you don't have to worry about it being perfect. One thing I always like try and emphasize, kind of more in the video game world, but it's like if you want to build an amazing video game, then you should set out to build a mediocre video game that works and then iterate it to be amazing. because if you set out to build the most amazing video game in the world, you will inevitably fail, because like it won't actually work out exactly like you're thinking. And so I think
Right.
like really getting to, the point is getting to something playable, something play testable, even if, that means me coming into the room and sort of demanding that you have something in 5 minutes. It's like, if you have some foundation of something, even if it's like a kind of like mediocre escape experience, then great, like that's your foundation and it works. And now you can see, now it's the fun part of just like, okay, this works, but what could be even better? What could we amp up? We can add this here. This part's
Yeah.
really not working. Let's replace that. So yeah, so I think that whole process, I think, is really fun, and it does, at the end of the day, I think, lead to the best sort of outcomes.
Listen
Cool.
to Jeb Havens, man, pants.
I
I got
listen to
lots of
Jeb.
aphorisms and things over there. That is one thing, like you're saying, one of my like favorite part of the escape jams is actually kind of on a selfish side, that like at the end of all of them, I end up like having some new revelation about the design process, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that is how that
So
works, or some
your
problems people come up
wisdom
to.
comes off the blood and the sweat
Completely.
of
Yeah. Right. That's how it works. Yeah, you just watch a bunch of people like struggle at something, and like, oh, that's right, they're all making this same mistake. I should really probably warn people about that, next time. So it's always getting better. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So before we go, let's reiterate that there is an escape jam this Sunday hosted by
Yes.
Room Escape Artist. You can go to roomescapeartist.com, I think, to find out details about that.
Hmm.
And it is yeah, so there is an early bird price, and it's I think it's $60.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. $60, lasts the whole day, and I think, and it's spooky themed. That's what's really
Spooky
exciting to me.
themed. Yeah,
I
it's
love
gonna be great. It's
ghosts
it's
too
all
much.
day on Sunday. And
Yeah.
also, if people are interested, so there is a Facebook group. It's not super active, but there is a Facebook group for called, I think, just Escape Jam, that
Neat.
you can join for kind of, information about this particular jam and upcoming ones, both the digital and the physical ones eventually again. And it's a cool community of folks there that sometimes, post some stuff. So that's something you can always check out, information on my website, jebhavensgames.com. And yeah, as I said, if anyone is like considering doing it or has questions, I feel, just reach out to me, even at jebhavensgames@gmail. Be happy to see as many people as possible take part in that, or future events as well.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much, and I look forward to Sunday.
All right,
Thank
awesome.
you,
Thank you
Jeb
guys.
Havens.
This was so much fun. It wasn't nearly as
Yeah.
bad as everyone warned me it was going to be. No, I'm just kidding.
Errol,
Because
Errol
Errol
behaved.
didn't. I behaved. I
Errol
was like
behaved.
very quiet today.
I
You
was
were.
expecting, so much for craziness or something, but yeah, one tangent. Come on, you guys are infamous.
One tangent the whole time.
Loves it.
And
Thank
oh
you.
yeah,
Well,
if
I
Great.
I didn't
anybody,
start getting into your like video game background or your board game likes.
trust me, I
Because
wanted to ask all about the video games. I'm like,
Right. I
focus.
will. Maybe in the future, I'll come back on it. We can nerd out about video games and board
Excel.
games and Excel spreadsheets,
Yeah.
yeah, we
X
could share our
lookup.
favorite formulas.
Yeah,
Yep.
I didn't even bring up the new similar columns function, so I'll tell you about that after.
Wow. You're really. I'm
This
sure
was
none
like
of the listeners are just like tuning out right now
yeah,
at this
this
point.
was like my big announcement today, and I attended like a webinar session, and that was like Excel's big announcement. It was like, we got new
Whoa.
functions, people, and it's like,
Mhm.
wow. Cool. So before I talk us out, also, if people want to find you, do you have a web page or anything where people can find you
Yep.
online?
Yeah, I think the best is at jebhavensgames.com or at Gmail. Either of those things is probably the best way to get in touch with me, or see that, or the Facebook group as well. I also do, in case folks are interested, they can reach out to me again about the jam. But also, I mentioned that I'm developing a new mobile game, which has these like really fun mini games you can play against people and possibly win real money. We're in a closed beta right now, but if people do want to reach out to me through my email, I can get invites for that for you guys or any of your listeners as well. But
Cool.
but yeah, always up for even just any conversation about game design or any sort of nerdy stuff like that.
Does your new app feature fun mini games like create the best pivot table?
Not yet, but it might.
Fun
It
game
might.
for accountants.
We would buy that. We would
There you go. Okay.
buy
All right.
that.
I'll work on it. I'll work on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
it fun?
Nice.
Who's your audience? That's the key. Is it fun for your target audience? All right, I'll talk us out. Room Escape Divas is brought to you by Inverse Genius. You can go to inversegenius.com to find other fun podcasts just like this one. You can also email us at roomescapedivas@gmail.com. We
Are there
love getting
accountant
emails.
podcasts on Inverse Genius?
Please do check out my newest podcast, Booking the Bookkeeper. I don't know.
Oh, people would be interested in that.
Yeah.
They can learn about new Excel functions.
Yeah. Oh, you derailed me just by like now I'm thinking too hard about
Booking the Bookkeeper, your new podcast.
new podcast.
It's better than the real crime crap, I tell you.
True crime. Yeah.
I don't even know.
I
what
could
it's
tell
called.
you stories. The receipts I've seen. Anyway, so yeah. Find us on Facebook, Room Escape Divas Facebook page. If you are on Twitter, you can use the hashtag REDivas. And currently, right now, every Friday, we are having community meetups on a Zoom call. Errol has set up events, which are on our Facebook page. So please do check them out. It's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm choking. And
Too excited about Booking the Bookkeeper. You're not going to be on this podcast anymore, are you?
No,
You can start
no.
your own.
I'm actually thinking about starting a new podcast about
Booking the
narrative in video games,
Bookkeeper.
but no.
That's just a front.
That's just
It's to really lure people in. Ooh,
lure people, yeah, because that's what they want to hear about. It's like, come to my
Narrative
niche podcast to hear my niche podcast.
The old bait and switch.
Yeah. Yes. So do come to the community meetups. We just hang out for an hour, chat about escape rooms and all sorts of fun things. And that's where you can see Mike and Ruby's baby, possibly, if they show up. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jeb Havens.